Jealous mum-in-law killed my girl for her baby. My teen sister was strangled to death, dying before she could save our brother. Oh no! Cheating husband murdered his wife with ice cream after brutal pig attack.
Now, for those of you who don't know who this guy is, this is Rob Ager. He has a channel. His channel is devoted basically to film analysis, and it's the best film analysis channel I have ever seen. I am some to him myself. And once in a while, he'll do other topics. And so this particular topic falls into my wheelhouse. So he'll be critiquing what? The insanity of women's true crime gossip magazines. It's a media analysis. And I'll be critiquing his critique because really there's nothing for him to critique. The true crime, I'll tell you right now, it has sex and violence, and women are turned on by the sex and violence. So that's why they buy these magazines. And so that's the end of the analysis, the proper one. And because he's a typical guy who doesn't want to believe what women, the motivations of the average woman, he believes there's deeper meaning behind this. And we will get into this.
This chat magazine that was in the doctor's office, it was the only thing to read on the table in front of me. There's about 6 copies of it, 6 different issues. And it stood out to me right away. There was some horrific story on the front about rape. And then I was like, what the hell kind of thing is that to put on the cover of a magazine?
Yeah, women love their rape stories, Mr. Iger. They always have. Why do you think that the women were so into Bram Stoker's Dracula? Over 100 years ago. Because the vampire attack was basically another form of rape, right?
I've seen a magazine, a shop shelf popular women's magazine or men's magazine that has that kind of thing on the front. And then I looked at all the issues that were on the table, and every one of them had the same thing on the front. These bold, blocky titles and very colourful, but with these horrific stories about paedophilia, stories about rape, stories about murder, stories about torture, all kinds of horrible stuff, every issue. And I thought, wow, this is weird. I've never come across this kind of stuff before. How strange are these new out?
Oh my God, you've never come across this before, ever? Mr. Iger, this stuff, I've seen this on the shelf since I was a kid. This has been around forever. Where have you been living?
Or what? So I started looking a little bit into the subject. I was interested. I found that it wasn't just this one magazine. There were 1 or 2 other publications around at the time that were doing a similar thing. And I found these magazines really, I found them quite disturbing, the way the most horrific aspects of life are sort of promoted to the reader on the cover with these big colourful titles. There's emotion grabbing, attention grabbing catchphrases in big bold letters. And at the same time, you'd have stories on the covers about how to bake a nice cake. There'd be normal women's stories mixed in with horror stories about true crime.
Okay, yes. So you're going down a dangerous path for yourself because you're just admitting that the stuff that women like, it disturbed you. But you see, this isn't strange to me because it's just those magazines are junk food for women. So of course it has everything in it that they like.
And yeah, I was kind of sickened by it at first. It made me feel uneasy. And there'd always be like a picture of a woman on the front giving a big gleaming smile, a model with really nice perfect teeth giving a smile. And underneath it would say something horrific. My kid was just murdered by her dad's mate, or, just fucking these really horrible stories. But presented in the same manner that you would expect a kids magazine or a teenagers magazine to be presented with.
Uh-oh, now you're bearing yourself. First, you admit that they sicken you, and now you're mentioning how they're marketed to grown women like they wouldn't be marketed to teenagers. So you're now admitting that women are immature, or at least that's the way they're going to see it. How else is someone going to interpret that?
Block colours and stuff. So I was really freaked by it. And recently I became interested in the subject again because I stumbled across these magazines again, and I'd forgotten about them over the years, and I didn't even know these kinds of things were still going. I thought it was just a short fashion at the time. And so I started having a look at them again, and I picked up multiple issues, which I've been studying. What's really weird about this is, I mean, I think this is very unethical. I'm not saying that these magazines shouldn't exist, but I think it's unethical that you can go into a shop that sells tons of magazines on a shelf, and there will be kids magazines, video game magazines, stuff like that. Those kids magazines where you get a free toy that's not fucking worth much, those crappy little toys, and the kids go, oh yeah, I want this piece of plastic. All that kind of stuff. Those magazines will be on the lower shelves where the kids can see them, and you will get these kinds of magazines on the same level on the shelf, at eye level, where like a 5 or 6 year old kid could see them and potentially read the titles on the cover.
Now, this is shows that not only does Mr. Ager not understand female nature, he doesn't even, like most adults, don't remember their own childhood and what they were like as children. And I do. Yeah, what the reason why this brings back to why they have all the smiling faces. It's camouflage. You see, Mr. Iger, unlike us guys who have to go into a seedy back room to get, what we like, society allows women to get whatever they want out in the open, and they do it by putting camouflage. What these beautiful women smiling like this is visually appealing. And then you have to be old enough to read the titles to know what's in it. And so that's why they put them in the shelf. And it's also junk food. That's why it's put in with the kid stuff. Now, like I said, as a child, if I was 6 years old and was walking along, I would just notice the pretty faces, and then I'd look at the toys that I was interested in. Kids would have to be old enough to read. And even if you were old enough to read, if you're 9, you wouldn't be even look at these magazines. They would just one look and say, oh, I'm not interested in that. It doesn't have any stuff that interests me as a child. And so that's why they do it. And it works perfectly. I've never heard a case where I've never seen like a 7-year-old child reading one of these magazines. And again, restriction, Mr. Iger is for us lowly guys, not for women.
And I find that really weird. I mean, these are like very arguably exploitative captions on the front of the magazines. They're definitely, it's adult material. This is not stuff that you'd show to your kids, and yet there they are on the shelves at the bottom, kids' height to be read. And I think they should be up on the top shelf, or they should be stopped from having these kinds of horrific stories on the front covers if the magazines are going to be at eye level for kids.
Okay, now you're being a misogynist again. You can't suggest something like that. You can't suggest restrictions to women. Do you understand? That's what a misogynist is, Mr. Iger. Some guy who doesn't know his place and thinks he's going to restrict the nobility. You're a peasant like me.
Okay, so I've been doing a fair bit of reading up about the subject of these magazines. I've been reading up on and off about it over the last month, and I've gathered tons and tons of notes and some insights and some questions.
Let's get a little further ahead.
Okay, so I've got a ton of notes written here about these magazines and lots of references to things I've found online exploring the magazines and who owns them and who writes the stories. And I've done a lot of research on it, and I've written down what I consider to be the most interesting and noteworthy points. So I'm going to be talking about all those things and referencing my notes as we go along here. But the first thing that I want to say is that I know some people will start off watching this video and they'll think, oh my God, he's going to be attacking women, saying that women are sick for reading these kinds of magazines. That's not what this video is about. I know there are some people out there who think
It's too late for that, Mr. Iger. It's too late for that. Like I said, misogynist just means a guy who doesn't know his place. He's a guy who is truthful about what women are like, or what they're into, when it's unflattering to them. And you've already, again, admitted that you found their reading material disturbing, and you found it marketed to children, or at least young adults. So you're saying that they're immature. I mean, you've already admitted to that, so it's too late for that. It's too late for this defense, and it wouldn't work anyway. What guys don't understand is it's not like there's these bad guys out there who disrespect women and you're the good guy. You are a misogynist like all the rest of us. If you aren't 100% pandering to women and exalting them. And in order to defend himself, he has to give the false equivalence of men like the same thing.
and right now that, just to be absolutely clear about this, men read stuff that is just as depraved and sick as what's in these magazines. I mean, there's one called Serial Killer Magazine. As far as I know, that one's marketed to men, and it's nothing but serial killer stories, and it's all.
This is true, but you'll notice there's no smiling faces, there's no bright colors, and these won't be found in with the kids section, will they? No. So it also shows you that men are focused. They're morbidly curious about these killers, whereas the women's magazines are junk food to them. So men want to know about the specific killer. Are the women's like that? No. It's just all that goes on is generic stories that are titillating to them. Okay.
All sensationalized and stuff. But the weird thing is with these magazines, you've got the strange thing of horrible true crime being mixed with everyday domestic women's issues, stuff to do with weight loss and let's knit a sweater. Oh, here's a true crime story. That's how weird it is with these ones. But with the men's magazines that cover this kind of stuff, from what I can see, those magazines are specifically devoted to the subject. Maybe this is a difference between how things are marketed to men and women.
No, not how they're marketed to men and women, how different men and women are.
I think men tend to be very sort of focused on specific thing that they want. So if they're going to get a magazine on video games or serial killers or weightlifting, I think men tend to be I want the magazine that deals with the exact thing that I want to read about. But I think a lot of things are marketed to women on the basis that, if we can connect with women's everyday concerns about weight loss and celebrity status and infidelity and romance stories, if we can hook women in with that kind of usual content that we have in women's magazines, and then we can give them the true crime stuff.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Iger, you are completely wrong. He's doing the old someone brainwashed women again business. They don't have to hook women into this. It's not like the stories about infidelity and the weight loss is like the meat and potatoes, and the true crime is like broccoli. No. Women love the true crime. They are giving women exactly what they want. So why can't you come to terms with women are just into the sex and violence? It titillates them.
There's something that seems to be present in a lot of the online research about this stuff, that which gets published anyway, is that there's been an explosion of interest in true crime. It's become very marketable over the last few years. I mean, I think it always was kind of marketable anyway, but especially the last few years, it seems to have exploded. And so I was looking at some material on a fairly new magazine called Crime Monthly. And that one, there's an article in Press Gazette that talks about this.
Yes, look, Bauer launches new true crime monthly aimed at women to tap into the growing market. So again, I'm going to correct this cart before the horse business. Again, Mr. Iger, it's not a case where the magazine had to sneak these true crime stories in and entice women with it. No, they found out that women like this, they're interested in it, and they're tapping into it.
And I'll quote directly from it so that you don't think I'm just making this stuff up. Crime Monthly will be found alongside women's weekly titles in shops after research from Bauer's marketing team confirmed true crime is very much a female-driven interest. Future publishing owned monthly Real Crime, that was another magazine, which Davis described as being the closest to what Crime Monthly wants to do, but aimed more at men, closed in November after 3 years in print. So you see what they're talking about there? They're saying that like the market for men in true crime appears to be declining, or it's not growing, but they're saying that the female-driven interest in true crime seems to be exploding. That's what
Exactly, because it's what they like. Men aren't into the junk food of it, right? When they are interested in true crime, they're interested in, actual, like you say, serial killers. They're interested in what motivates them. They have curiosity about the subject, but it's just junk food for women. And you admitted by reading that it's their research. They researched it and found out what women like. And so women like this. So why is there an hour-long commentary on this?
magazine called Crime Monthly for that very purpose, and they said that they wanted to market it to women. Okay, so this isn't me saying bad things about women here. This is what the marketplace is reporting, and I found
This won't protect you. It doesn't matter, Iger, what your intent is. You've already committed the crime. You've already admitted truthfully, in this case, that these marketers researched what women want, and they found it, they like this, this sex and violence, and they're turned on by it. And it's unflattering. So you're going to get labeled with the misogyny. Do you understand that? Now, this one's important.
okay. So just another couple of things there. As well as the fact that these magazines appear low on the shelf where kids can see them, there's no age restriction on who can buy the magazines, as far as I know. You could be a 7-year-old kid, walk into a shop, get one of these magazines, and read about torture, rape, and murder.
Exactly. They do not restrict women and girls' hobbies in any way. I just want to show you something, okay? Let me show you something. China limits children's video game playing to 3 hours a week. Now, I know this is China, but even over here in North America, they've done it with video games. They do have, not so much the hours, but they have restrictions on like 18 plus games, right? There's restrictions. Not, a little boy cannot just necessarily go and buy Grand Theft Auto. Video games are definitely a male thing. And so there's limits to them. They like limiting guys. And in case of China, video games is a way of escaping. And they want their little boys to know that they're going to be workhorses. So this is an extreme one, right? So it's just to point out that Iger, they're not going to restrict women the way they restrict boys. They're not going to restrict girls. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you, let's see, images, Clan of the K-Bear. This is a story I read years ago, Clan of the K-Bear. And Jean, I don't know if it's Ale or whatever. In any event, this particular book had rape scenes in it. The heroine, the Ayla, I believe it's her name is. I'm just going by memory. She was basically a Cro-Magnon who was adopted by a Neanderthal tribe, and the chief's son was raping her on a regular basis. And the age, if I'm wrong due to memory, she was only like 11 or 12. So any young girl can go and buy Clan of the Cave Bear. Matter of fact, probably mom bought them, read it, and then threw it down, and her daughter read it after that. And this is just one example of the typical rape fantasy that's in women's stories. And it's all there for girls to read. So you must admit, I mean, there's something really disgusting about, little boys watching superhero cartoons where the superhero is not allowed to punch anyone. And yet a 12-year-old girl can pick up Clan of the Cave Bear and have a part of the story be rape of a girl who's just hit puberty, right? Oh, I just want to give Iger a support here. He is right about this.
And of course, the big question. I mean, I'm not a type of person who goes for censorship. There's some situations where I agree with censorship. I mean, you wouldn't want a kiddie porn magazine being put out there, would you? That's no good. So some things we do want to have censorship, but I'm not generally a fan of censorship. I like free, open debate, and even the people I disagree with, I'm all for them being allowed to express their opinions at the very least, and I'll express my disagreements in return, and that's fine.
No, I agree with this 100%. I want to say Iger is exactly like this because I'm sub to him. I'll debate with them and people in the comment section, and my comments get through, and I haven't been banned. And he's a rare case because most of the guys, vast majority of men who go on about, I'm not into censorship, do censor you. You start talking truthfully about the opposite sex, all of a sudden your comments aren't showing up anymore. And maybe you're just banned. So I want to give kudos to Iger for that.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be much of an attempt in these magazines to explore, to actually understand the crimes that are being reported about. And I found it quite funny that there are occasionally mainstream news media articles talking about these magazines, and there'll be like an interview with one of the editors or something. And
yeah, exactly. This is junk food for the ladies. They're not there to be informed. They're not curious. They are simply turned on by the sex and violence of the stories. That's it. Sorry for harping on this. I might have to go further ahead. Let me see. Okay. This is really interesting too. He's going to bring about presentation of the magazine. He's going to talk about colors, and he's going to get it wrong because I'm going to correct him about what the colors mean.
although the fronts of the magazines often have yellows, blues, pinks, and that type of thing, the actual stories, the actual crime stories, they tend to use both fonts and background colours that are in some combination of red, white, and black, and sometimes yellow. Red, white, black, yellow, those seem to be the dominant colours that are used for these stories. Obviously, red for blood, and then you've got black and white, which are harsh contrast to each other, and then you've got yellow, which is thrown in there, and yellow with black is typically perceived as a sign of danger. That's not just something that we humans have created, it's there in nature. Animals will use coloration of red and black, or yellow and black, or red, black and yellow, or they will use those colours to give off a signal to other creatures that, hey, I'm poisonous.
Now, For a guy who doesn't understand women, that's not a bad analysis. But for me, it's a terrible analysis. Let me try and get back to it. Here we are. You know what else has red and yellow in it? The McDonald's sign. Marketers found that they said the red stimulates hunger and the yellow means fun. So when women are looking at this, what they're seeing is the red is basically for lust and violence, and the yellow means you're going to have a good time. This is junk food for you to enjoy. That's what the red and yellows actually mean. Like black and white is just to emphasize these. So this is in fact what they're really advertising. It's a McDonald's sign for women who are eating their junk food. Okay, this is the last thing I want to cover in this. He talks about the Guardian, and this is what he's surprised, but not me, what he's about to say.
Newspaper had covered the success of Pick Me Up magazine when that got launched. Had quite high sales apparently. But interestingly, The Guardian did not call out any of these magazines, including Pick Me Up, for the lack of morality in how they're marketed and the lack of morality in how these horrific crimes are covered. You would have thought The Guardian, with its usual high moral opinion of itself on these things, you would have thought that they'd have talked about that, but they didn't.
Now, this again shows Iger's complete naivete. Mr. Ager, The Guardian, is a feminist-run magazine. Well, it's not a magazine, but a media. And feminists give women whatever women want. And so, of course, they're not going to call it immoral. Anything women do is considered immoral because they're the upper crust. Morality is for us peasants, for us male peasants. And so this is so gullible. Like, Iger, do you not realize this is a feminist-run media? So they're always going to be like this. This is a very anti-male publication, and it's female supremacist. So if women like to read stories about baby rape, then that is good. Everything women do is good, and everything men do is bad. So that's just the last thing I want to point out. Okay, so I'm going to put his in the description box, and it's an hour long. I know there's a lot of editing here, and the reason is, I mean, I would be stopping and starting this forever, replying to him, and that'd probably be 2 hours long. But it's worth you guys, out of curiosity, go and see what he has to say about the whole length. That way you can't say, oh, you took him out of context. And by the way, Iger, you're going to be called a misogynist over this, because you just basically said these magazines are immoral to be marketed towards women the way they are, which is out in the open for women to grab whenever they feel like it. So I'm just adding that too. So everyone, good day.